Hello, everybody. This is the Enlightened Misanthrope, and this is my 10th episode. Probably know that because on my episodes they're labeled. Sorry that this one's probably going to be late. If not late, it won't come out till next week. I've really just been getting slammed by everything that's been going on. School, and now we got snow and dogs, and I had that filling last week, and work, and just fucking, constant shit. I mean, and granted, everybody's got a life. All that kind of shit happens to everybody, but, it just seems to be harder for me to do what I'm supposed to. I was going to start with something else, but I suppose I could start with my... I was going to start with Mike McCarthy getting fired, but I suppose I don't need to do that now because I already started talking about my struggles. So I had an exam. I was looking for my notepad. That's what I was doing. I tend to write down my topics because then it helps me remember what the hell I talked about, and so I can write my descriptions online. I had an exam in my class. We were supposed to have 4 exams with counting the final. Now we only had 3 because we kind of dicked the dog, apparently. I don't really know why we're only having 3, but we got behind. That's basically the answer. And it was a fucking hit job. I mean, I did a piss poor job. I wasn't super confident in the taking of the exam, but once I got the numbers back, it was like, are you fucking serious? Holy shit. Like, it was hard for me to look at. It's probably the worst I've done in a long time. And of course now there's like a week and a half left in the semester or whatever. Like tomorrow, I think we have the next week, and then we have the final. And I'm fucked. I mean, I'm just fucked. There's not a fucking thing I can do at the moment other than, I emailed my professor and I'm like, can I do some extra credit? We'll see what he says. Prospect of a meeting with him tomorrow. And it was bad. And I've been in school for a long time. And when I was in high school, my last couple of years, I think I went to 160 whole days my sophomore year. I think I went 80 whole days no, not 160. I don't remember. I went I think I went a little more than half, probably like 2/3 my sophomore year. I probably went a third, not even, maybe a little more. So I wouldn't say half, probably like, I don't know, 3/8 or some fucking thing. I don't really know. But I went to about that much in my junior year, and then my senior year, I think I went 20 whole days. Like I used to, my senior year, I used to stroll in at like 10 o'clock. And I could never figure out why. Most days I'd go in for lunch, and then I'd go to gym, and then I'd go home. Man, sometimes I'd stick around for study hall. Occasionally I'd go to classes that are like, okay, if you don't take this class, you're going to fail. And my plan was I was going to take all these classes, I was going to pass all my classes, and then I was going to graduate early because I would have enough credits and I could just, be done. Didn't do that. I fucked off the first semester, and then I had to actually show up so I extended my period of time there like an idiot. But it was funny because I had high school English, and you had to take English every semester, but I had a course that had an English requirement. It fulfilled an English requirement too, because for whatever reason, I think it was like I don't know. It was in the computer room, and I don't know how the fuck it had to do with English, but it did. And I knew I had that in my back pocket. So I did enough to pass the first half semester of senior English, and then I didn't go the rest. It was funny because we had what the fuck is it called? I don't know. It's basically like a senior. It was the senior project, but it's like any project you do in college where you have to, synthesize information and make a PowerPoint and then make a presentation and all this other shit. And it was funny because I did all of the work up to it, really not a lot, but I did enough to pass. And then I had no intentions of presenting. I just played the game for the first semester, and then I fucking ditched and never went back. And I was gone every fucking day. Like I think I got like an F in that class, or I don't even think it was like a non-compete. So long story short, when I was in, well, I had to show up for the final couple of months, and I went to the teacher and I said, okay, what do I have to do to pass? I don't need an A, I just need to pass. I'm not graduating. And they're like, okay, this and this and this and this. And so I made a deal with everybody, and I was like, oh fuck, these deals aren't great, but they are. I mean, I need to pass so I can live with them. And I had this one teacher who taught shop, and he was a fucking prick. And he wasn't a bad guy. He thought he could push me around. He thought he could push a lot of people around, which worked, but he couldn't push me around. I mean, if any of you who listen to this don't know by now, I'm not the guy to push around. Like, I'm the guy who, you try to push me around, you're gonna get fucked up, And anyway, so I had this. I remember coming down the stairs because it was on the lower level was the high school office, and outside the office was the principal and that teacher, and they both were talking. And then he looked at me, and the principal looked at me, and he called me over. So I went over there, and I had been doing my work, and I think I had like a D plus, and I don't remember. I might even had a D in itself, but I had more than an F, and the guy looks at me and he goes, well. He said, the principal said, you're not going to pass. You can come and walk, he said, but you're not going to get your degree. You're going to have to come back and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. I'll just tell you now, I'm not going to show up. He's like, well, you should. It's for your parents. But I said, do you know who my parents are? My parents aren't going to fucking want to watch me walk across the stage if they know I'm not getting a fucking diploma. Are you a fucking idiot? And so he's like, well, it's your choice, blah, blah, blah. So I think that was like 3 weeks before school ended. I don't remember. 2 weeks maybe. I don't remember. It wasn't a long time before our last day. And the principal's office is right next to a door to go outside. So he said, all right, well, whatever you want to do. And he walked back towards his office, and I walked back towards it with him. And I took the corner and walked out the door and walked home, and that was it. I was done. Fuck you. I didn't go back. Never. And I think the day we had to turn all our shit in, I got a call from the guidance counselor. Anyway, so she called, and I said, okay, well, what's this about? So I called her back, and she answered, and I said, okay, well, she said, well, it seems like you passed. I said, I passed. She said, yeah. She said, you passed, and you can graduate. I said, oh, okay, that's nice. That's nice. I don't believe you, but okay. She said, well, come in, we'll help you get your books taken care of, blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, all right. So I walked in her office, and I sat down. I said, now, if you're full of shit, and this is just some ploy to get me to do this fucking bullshit work, I said, I'm going to walk out the fucking door right now. I don't give a shit. And she said, no, she said there was some irregularities and blah, blah, blah. Well, it turns out that the guy also was the shop teacher, was the yearbook teacher, and we were fucking behind on the yearbook. I don't think we got it out. I don't think they got it out until the beginning of the year after that. Like, we graduated, and then I think in 2008, and I think we didn't get it till like 2009. Like, my mother picked it up for me because she bought it for me, and she's like, oh, Merry Christmas. I'm like, what the fuck do I want that for Christmas? But whatever. And she brought it to me, and we watched. And so anyway, he needed us to finish the yearbook, and he needed everybody on board. And I was gone, and he knew I was gone, and so he tried to get me to make a deal where he would pass me if I would come in the summertime. And this was after he had already fucked me over, and he took all the grades out to try to make it so I didn't pass. So I had to come back in the summer. And my mother, who works in the school, was monitoring my grades. And so she found out about it. She said, well, I looked at your grades, and apparently she caused all kinds of hell for the 2 weeks that I was gone and threatened to sue people and all kinds of shit. And I had no idea. I just stayed home. I didn't talk to anybody. I wanted nothing to do. I think I like hung out with her boyfriend on the weekends and like went to his place and drove around, and like he was like, you should really go back to school. I'm like, yeah, and you should shut the fuck up because I'm not going back. I didn't say that, but I was just like, yeah, whatever. And it was funny because he's like, well, you have your mommy fight your battles for you, blah, blah, blah. And this is the first class I have with him because I had shop and then I had yearbook. So then I have yearbook later on in the day, and the fucking guy's going to sit there and he's going to try to talk me into coming back. And he's like, well, you know, I can make it hard for you if you don't do this. And, you know, I got some sway around here. The guy had been there for, I think, a year and a half. Not even. I think that was his first year. I don't remember. But he's acting like he's going to make it tough for me. I'm like, dude, first of all, I don't want a fucking job in this shitty-ass town. And secondarily, you have no say of anything. You don't know anybody. He came from somewhere else. He wasn't born there. Like, that's an inbred fucking place in the sense that, like, if you are born there, you know people. If you're not, they want nothing to do with you. And so I walked out, and he's like, oh, you shake my hand. You blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fuck you. He already tried to fuck me once, and you think you're going to fuck me again and tell me, well, I could make it so you don't pass. I was like, no, you can't. I already passed. I know I did. And so I walked out. One of my buddies was in the class with me, and he's like, you have no intention of coming back, do you? I'm like, no, fuck that dude. He tried to fuck me like 3 times now. Fuck him. And he's like, yeah, I don't blame you. He's like, but I'm just surprised he's stupid enough to believe that you're going to come back. I was like, well, I said to him, he already knows that he lost, so he's trying to bargain with me from a position of a loss and thinking that he's going to win. He's a fucking idiot. But anyway, all of that is to say that my last year in high school was fairly tumultuous. I mean, like I said, I went 20 whole days, like the entire morning till nighttime of going to school. And it was funny because then when I went to college, my first year, I thought, all right, man, I'm going to, and I sat in the introductory freshman class. I went to a 2-year, you know, not too far away from my house and in the university system. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, if you want to take a full course load, that's 15 credits. It's not just 12. Don't let them make it, blah, blah, blah. And so I took 15, and I took a lot of classes in the morning. I was like, I'm going to change my ways. I'm going to do better. I went, I think, like 3 times in the first 2 weeks, and then I never went back ever again. And I didn't know about dropping. I didn't know about withdrawing. I didn't know about any of that. I didn't know that I could keep my my eligibility and like my, you know, my acceptance into the school because I had I had a bad transcript, but I didn't realize that a 2-year will take anybody that has a check, you fucking moron. Like, if I could talk to myself back then and be like, dude, just drop them. You'll be fine. You can get your mother's money back. But I didn't. And so I got 5 fucking F's on my record. Now, one of them was a remedial math class, so it didn't really count. So I had 4 F's on my record, essentially a full boat for a student for financial aid. So then I spent the next 2 semesters fucking lying to my mother because I lied the entire time. I was working at this time. I didn't make I made decent money, but I spent, I was fat. I was just coming out of high school. I was fucked up. And not just a little bit fucked up. I was a lot fucked up. And I don't do drugs. I don't drink, but I eat my emotions and my feelings away. So it was, it wasn't a far cry for me to throw myself at the mercy of Taco Bell or Burger King or something like that, and I remember I used to go to Subway and they had the 2 for $8 deal, and I'd get that, but I'd stop at the grocery store before I went to Subway, and I'd get either a can of chunky soup or Velveeta or Kraft, the ones with the bags, not the dried stuff, but the really bad for you stuff, cheese and macaroni and cheese. And I would make that, and then I would eat that, either eat all of it or 3/4 of it, and I would eat at least a whole sub, if not a sub and a half. And then I'd go to sleep, of course, because I'm carb overload, right? I wasn't really on sweets. Oh, well, that's not true, because I drank probably 4 sodas in that meal. I fucking kicked my own ass. I remember when I was in high school and I tried to play football, and I worked out 3 times a day. I was up there. I was in decent shape for the fact that I ate like dick. I drank Mountain Dew every time I turned. Had I cut out Mountain Dew and like just some of the stuff that I don't eat now, I would have been fucking ripped, like unbelievably so, which pisses me off because I've struggled with weight all of my life only for the fact that I'm an idiot. And that is simply the fact. I didn't realize what I was doing. And I also have an unhealthy relationship with food. That's why I choose to stay away from addictive substances, because I know, given my predilection for the food addiction, I would be insanely addicted to alcohol or gambling. I mean, I don't think gambling so much because I'm a fucking, cheap asshole. So, but I don't honestly, like, if I don't have money, I know how to be poor. So it's not a huge deal, but I'd be a junkie. I'd be all kinds of stuff. I'd be, there was a lot of concern later on when I was transferring from my 2-year school. I was going to go to UW-Madison, and that didn't work out. But my mom wanted to go with me, and she was going to get a new job down in Madison, and we were going to live in a house outside of town, and I was just going to drive in, go to class, come home, drive in, go to class, come home. And she was real insistent. Like, I told her, you don't have to go. I can go by myself. They got housing, they got stuff, we can figure it out. I can get an apartment, whatever, we can figure it out. She was going to pay for it anyway. And she was going to have to buy a new house and do all this other shit. And then we had my grandmother to worry about. And then my grandmother died and all that went down the shitter. But the point being is that a couple months ago we were talking about it. And she finally said, I said, yeah, and you were up my ass about going. And she was having trouble with her boyfriend. So it was a good way to get rid of that. And the other part was, which was unknown to me at the time until, a couple months ago, was she said, well, yeah, I wanted to go down there with you because I didn't think you were going to adjust very well. I said, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't, She said, well, not so much that you wouldn't be able to do it or take care of yourself or whatever. She said, you were really good at that. You still are. She said, but the thing being is that, you would hate it. You would hate everybody there. And I did not like most of the people when I was there. I went and visited. That was in the weekend that a month before my grandmother died, I had gone down to visit, and that was the point. I went down to see their wares and, check out their school and see, well, does it work for me or not? And I was impressed. I was going to go. But I hated everybody there. I hated everybody I ran into. The stores were expensive as fuck. Everything was dumb. Like, I was just like, Jesus Christ, you fucking assholes live here? Why? Now, Madison's not a bad place. It's just not designed for me. I'm an up north kid. I guess I'm going to stay that way, and it's going to probably impact my life in ways that I'm not really going to register, but it is what it is. I'm not, I don't really see the need for all of those trappings, And she said, well, and she was afraid that I was going to fucking burn the school down and, like, just go up there and cause fucking trouble and create groups and, just run shit in a bad way, because I would just, once I got pissed off, I would just try to fuck people up, and not exactly in a physical sense, but emotionally, go around and start trouble on campus and stuff, and, protest shit and all kinds of things. Get the disenfranchised to follow me, and then direct them to do shit that I thought was, to take care of shit that pisses me off. And so she wanted to come down to fucking referee and make sure I didn't do that, which I thought was fucking hilarious because, I never had considered that, but, it possibly could have happened. I was an angry individual. I still am, not as bad as I was then. It dissipates as you get older. Anybody who's aged as an angry person knows it's still there, but it's harder to get angry because it takes so much out of you, and afterwards you're just like, fuck this, I'm tired, leave me alone. But I just, the exam bothers me because I've been in school for 10 years, ostensibly. I mean, not, full tilt. I took at least 2 years off, if not more. And I had to teach myself how to go back to school. I hadn't gone to school since middle school. I mean, honestly, I hadn't, where you had the structure and you had to do this and when I was in school and when I was in, high school, my thing was we had until the end of the semester to do all the work. I wouldn't do anything until the end of the semester, and then I would do all my work in the last 3 days before the semester ended. And my mother always talks about how I had one English teacher who's like, I'm just amazed at the amount. She liked it because she wanted to see how much work I would turn in. I wouldn't do everything because I wouldn't get to everything, but I would do probably 85% of it. Some of it I didn't care about, and it was like, if it was worth 5 points, I'm not wasting my time with that. But if it's worth 35 points and, it's just a worksheet, well, fuck it, I'll do it, And So you get 10 points off. Okay, I still got 25 points because I got good scores. I just, fuck you, I'm not doing your fucking shit when you want me to. And now, the problem with all of that is that I'm at an age where I'm starting to slip, you know. And the other thing is I'm not so much slipping, I just don't fucking care anymore. You know, that's the biggest problem. I sit in class and all I do is fuck on my computer. I fuck around on my computer for hours. And part of that is that I don't care. The other part is that I drive too much. I hate the fucking car, and I have to drive over an hour to get to school. And so once I get to school, I need to decompress. I don't need to listen to you talk. I was watching the episode of the South Park with the Buddha box and the anxiety, and where the guy has to, I mean, honestly, one of those would be perfect for me. Once I got to school, I could just put on that box and ignore everybody. And that's what I do with my computer. It's not my phone, but because I hate phones are too small and I don't like them, and I'd rather have an actual keyboard. And there's like 100 reasons why I'm not as obsessed with my phone as everybody else. But you know, it's just one of those things where that score rattled me. I mean, I've never had a bad score like that in a really long time. And granted, that's a class that I'm not that interested in. It's a teacher that I don't really think is that good of a teacher. And there's, you know, there's half a dozen other things to be considered. Oops, I think I got this pointed the wrong way. Do I have it pointed the wrong way or not? Or is it here? Oh, it's there. Okay. But I mean, you know, wow, that's way loud. I just think that overall, you know, as a person, as we get older, you know, you don't learn as much. It's harder for you to go to school and pay attention. I mean, this fucking podcast, all it requires is me to sit down for an hour, you know, and, you know, just blather. I don't have to do anything else but sit here and talk. And I couldn't manage to do it. I just can't. I've been cleaning up my house. I've had to snowblow the driveway. My snowblower leaked all its fucking fuel all over my garage for whatever fucking reason. You know, my girlfriend stayed. She didn't have to go to work till noon, so then she went grocery shopping with me today. So, you know, we're looking at, I got 20 more minutes to record this before I have to pause and go pick her up, and then I'll pick it up later. But it's like, I don't have time for all this shit. And then I got 2 projects to do. And then last week when I had that fucking exam, I had 2 projects to do. And then my dad called me on Tuesday and wanted me to work on Saturday. And for like fucking 6 hours. And one of my projects was due on Monday, and I hadn't done anything of it, and I was going to do it that weekend. Well, if I go to work on Saturday, I ain't going to do a fucking thing for the rest of Saturday, and it's going to take me Sunday to recover, and the project's due on well, I said it was on Monday. I honestly didn't know when it was due. It was due on Tuesday. So I possibly could have got it done. But I'm not fuck you. I don't want to do all that shit. And I had all that on my mind. And then I fucking take that exam, and I'm just like, I stayed there. I was there an hour extra than everybody else. Like, class gets over 3:15. I didn't get done until 4. He was nice enough to sit there with me, but I fucking fucked it up. I mean, I fucked it up. So now I got to go and grovel and try to get some points and do some shit to if I got to do some extra work, you know, write a paper, whatever the fuck it is, I don't give a shit. I'll write a paper. Give me a project, because we were supposed to do a team project. Give me a paper to write. I will write a paper. I'm writing a paper on Sears. Would you know, you can read that for extra credit. I don't know. It threw me off. And being in college for 10 years, not 10, it's more like 8, but ostensibly, I mean, I had to relearn how to go to school in college. Now, granted, I went to a 2-year school, which is just an extension of high school. It took me a while to learn that, but I'm also lazy. I don't like school. I never have, because it wasn't challenging. Now it's sort of challenging, but it's not challenging in a way like, they're not teaching me stuff that I give a shit about. He's talking about investments, and he's talking about dividends. He's talking about this. I don't really need to know all that stuff. I mean, I will at some point, but I'd rather get paid to know it. You know what I mean? And I know I should know it. I know I should pay attention. I know I should know what the fuck is going on. And this semester's been bad. And this is the first semester. Like, I hadn't worked fairly regularly for a really long time. And I don't work fairly regularly, but this summer I worked a lot. Like, last spring, my dad asked me to come and help him, and I don't really get paid, but I work, and so he calls me, and once every so often I got to go up there and help him and do this and do that, and I had to go up there I went up there 4 days a week last semester. Well, that was a fucking stupid idea. And then during the summer, I was there all the time for the first 2 months until I finally said in July, I was like, I'm done. I'm not, because I'd say, well, I can't work this much. And I can't because I get burnt out. I'm just not one of those people who can, who can put all that energy into that shit, because I don't think I'm built for it. It's not one of them. It's not a quality that I have. It's just something that I'm not necessarily built for. And, like I was talking to my girlfriend, and she was saying, well, we had some issues, and she's like, well, I need to be needed. And she didn't think that I needed her. And she said, she likes the dogs that we have now because without her, they'll die, And so for me, she feels like she could leave and I'd be fine. Well, of course, because I'm adaptable. But it doesn't mean that I don't need her. I said to her, do you really think I can go to work 40 hours a week minimum? I said, do you honestly think right now that I'm able to do that? That I'm able to go to a job that I don't like, spend that much time there, and not quit after 2 weeks? And she's like, well, no. I'm like, you do that. You help out a lot by doing that. And I need you for that reason. Because without you, I can't. Could I do it for a while if I worked at my dad's place? Yeah. Would I like to? Fuck no. I hate that place. It sucks. Being a short order cook's terrible. It's not terrible like the job's not terrible, but, being a short order cook in that kind of place is just, I hate bars. I hate bars. I don't hate them in the sense, but I hate drunk people. And I hate stupid drunk people. And that area where his bar is that's just what's there. And it's not a bad thing. They aren't bad people. It's just not for me. And so I have to sit there and pretend that I like these people because they're paying me, essentially. Well, you know what? I don't like you, and I'm not. So it's funny, like my dad always bitches because I don't serve drinks. I don't help out. I sit by, even when I'm not busy, I sit by the fucking stove and I don't do a fucking thing because, first of all, I don't know the first thing about mixing drinks. And I don't want to learn. And my dad's, he's like, well, you could come fucking crack a beer. You know how to do that. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that either. I said, because you know what I like less than customer service? Drunk customer service. And I don't want to do that. And he's so mad about that, but I don't fucking care because you know what? Fuck this shit. Fuck these people and fuck their bullshit. People are fucking stupid and they're assholes. And it's gotten worse now. My mother and I talk about customer service a lot. And how customer service is completely gone from the country. To a large degree. You call any place and you try to get somebody on the phone, you get sent to some fucking call bank somewhere, whether it's in this country or not, and they just don't give a flying fuck because it's some shitty job that they have for $10 an hour, and they have to try to solve your stupid problems, and they get so many old people who call that just are like, I don't know how it works. Did you turn it on? No. They get calls like that, so they're burnt out. Like they maybe when they start, they're like eager to help people, possibly, but most of the time it's just a fucking job, and then you get burnt out after about 10 minutes because you're dealing with idiots most of the time, and dicks. But the customers now are horrible. People are just horrible. They come in, especially bars. Like I remember when I used to go to bars years, and not that long ago, and people were fairly decent. They didn't get fucking trashed and act like dick heads to the people who cooked. And, we have an open kitchen, which is a terrible idea. If you have a place, or if you're buying a bar with food, or if you're, like, going to design a place to build and you're listening to me, don't have an open kitchen. I don't give a fuck if that's the norm now where people, I want to see what's going on back there. No, fuck you. Eat your food and shut the fuck up. That's how I feel. That was the food I got as a kid when I was a child. My parents served me food. Eat your food and shut the fuck up. That was the thing, And now everybody's like, "What got you?" And then they want this and they want that, and they gotta have. I mean, they can't just like. There's mostly burgers at that bar, but they gotta have a burger, and it's gotta be raw, rare, and all. It doesn't say on the fucking menu can be done to medium well or whatever. Rare. Yeah, fuck you, fuck you. That is not my job. Like, I cook it until it's cooked and then you get it. Like, I'm not fucking, and I just hate that. And I know it makes me an asshole, but I don't care. Because you know what? I mean, in certain respects, the customer is always right, but in certain other respects, the customer's a dick. And when it comes to food service, customers are dicks. They're dicks. If you really want your food done a certain fucking way, go home and cook it yourself. Or, if you're too lazy to do dishes and cook your own food, then fucking go to a restaurant and eat what you fucking get. That was the attitude that used to be at my dad's place, and now since he's removed himself somewhat, now there's less of that. And I don't like that so much because, at the end of the day, for me, I don't want to, fuck these customers, fuck them. Most of them are drunk assholes who just say shit to be dicks. And, like, Friday night fish isn't bad, but when people come in, like, when you go out for Friday night fish fry, right? 90% of the menu, like, if it was me, I would take everything else off the menu. We're only making fish. We'll have fish sandwiches. We'll have a couple different things for kids. There's apps, but that's it. There are no burgers. We're not making burgers. We're not making pizzas. We don't make anything but fish. There are many fish options like shrimp and pollock and walleye and, what the fuck is that called? Not smelt. There's haddock, but that ain't what I'm thinking of. It's that tiny little one. Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it's something small. It's not smelt, but it's like that. And there's those many options for that. There's like 4 different options for sides. You get a piece of bread and you get coleslaw. Like, that's what you should come for. If you don't want fish, I guess you're at the wrong place. You can have a fish sandwich. We'll make, we'll deep fry you a couple pieces of haddock and throw it on a bun. But that's what you get on Fridays is fish. And there are appetizers. So if you choose not to have fish, you can have an appetizer platter thing, That's what I would do. There wouldn't be any of this other fucking bullshit. We're not, there are no burgers available. You can have a salad. We'll make you a salad, like a side salad, but that's it. I'm not making you a fish salad. I'm not, I just hate everybody. They're just, I mean, when you come in on a Fish Fry Friday, and for those of you who don't know, who don't live in Wisconsin, if you're listening to this, on Friday nights, most people go to restaurants and they get deep fried fish. It's kind of like a thing you do. It's a traditional thing. People seem to like it. I don't necessarily ascribe to it, but for years I used to. It was a thing. My mom and I would go out for fish on Friday when I lived with her. My dad and I would stop at a restaurant when he'd come pick me up from school on Friday for fish. And, it was kind of a thing you do. I don't want to eat fried food anymore, so I don't really eat deep fried fish. Now, I'll take some fish home from work. Like, I'll cook up a couple of things of walleye, or I'll, do a little this, or my girlfriend will be like, can you bring some fish home? And I'll bring some fish home. But overall, I don't want to, and I'm just not interested. And so a lot of people on Friday nights will go out for fish, and they do it all year round. And it's not bad, I make decent money or whatever, but it's not very interesting, and so for me, I can't work doing that fucking full time. Like, I couldn't do that. And so my girlfriend thinking that she's not needed, that's just nonsense. And so me going to work and doing all that stuff and then trying to go to school and then still going to work, like, I didn't get a break. And I know a lot of you who have full-time jobs and have to work all the time and don't have anybody who helps you, you're like, oh, you poor fucking baby. Well, I'm not asking for your sympathy. I'm just explaining my situation. Why I think I did poorly is because I haven't had this much responsibility in fucking almost my entire life. I mean, I've had doses of responsibility, but it would come, it'd be for a while and then go away. Like when my grandmother passed, my dad asked me if I'd go and help my aunt, and spend time down there and help her take care of my grandmother. Well, could I have said no? Absolutely. Did I want to say no? No, because I knew my dad should have done it. Too much of an ass well, not an ass, but he's a pussy. He can't deal with that stuff. So I knew that my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin were going to be affected by that. And so I figured, well, I should go and help, and it should have been my dad because it was his mother and it was his job. But he was like, oh, I gotta work. He didn't have to work. His business partner told him he could take the time, but he didn't want to because he didn't want to watch that. And I don't blame him because it was hard to watch. It was a hard situation. It wasn't as hard for me because I was pretty much at peace with it before she had left. She had lived with my dad, and then when she went to Texas, that was kind of our goodbye. And I didn't really see her. I hadn't seen her in years. I think she was gone, well, probably 4 years, something like that. And she was gone, and that was it. And it was almost like she had already passed by the time I saw her again. And then it was nice to see her, but it was saddening that I saw her in that state. But she was still herself, and it was, we spent some time together. And then when I went home from where she was going back to Texas, the last time I saw her, I said goodbye, and that was it. And I knew that was my final goodbye, and I was okay with the way I left it. I mean, was there some time that went by that I could have done some things differently, and we could have spent, could there have been more moments and whatever? Yeah, but for a lot of my early adulthood and my childhood, I spent it with my grandparents. I really did. I mean, I spent more time with my grandparents probably than I did with my parents, and especially when I was a little kid. And then when I went with when we were at my dad's, then my grandmother lived with my dad. So every time I went by my dad's, I saw her too, And then I'd go see my other grandmother, because my mom would come pick me up and she'd be like, well, we got to go over see Grandma. And it's like, and at the time I resented that, and you think about it now, and even though I was a prick and I acted like a jerk off, it was worthwhile because it made, it made their passing a little easier because I didn't feel I don't like saying passing because what are they passing? That's stupid. It made their deaths easier because when they finally did die, I didn't feel like I hadn't seen them. I didn't feel like I hadn't spent enough time with them. I didn't feel like I let the side down, especially with my other grandmother, the one died suddenly, she went to sleep. She had leukemia, but she was doing okay, and she was on some new medicine, and her test results were coming back positive, but the house that I'm in now, she laid down probably 5 feet away, 6 feet away from where I'm sitting currently on the floor, and she had an aneurysm, they assume, and because they never did an autopsy, and that was it. She was dead. And it was funny because when they found her, they said, oh, she must have gotten sick or whatever. I said, no, she liked to sleep there. For whatever reason, she liked to sleep in that certain spot in between the kitchen and the living room. And I remember making Thanksgiving the year before, and I was clanging around pans and pots and stuff. And she said, I'm tired. I'm going to go lay down. I said, okay. And she comes back with a blanket, and she lays, and she's 85 years old, and she's laying on the fucking floor. I said, what are you doing? Go lay in bed. She said, I don't want to lay in bed. I want to lay here. I said, why? She said, because I like to lay here. Now just leave me alone. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll back off. But, when she died, that was kind of an abrupt stop. Like the merry-go-round stopped in the middle, and kaboom, we went. My other grandmother, when she died, it was an entirely different situation. Like I said, I had to go and stay down there and help my, help my aunt and my uncle and my cousin, with the stuff that was going on. And I wasn't a lot of help because, there's a lot that I would do, but I'll give my aunt credit. The bathroom stuff, she did all that. That kind of, no. I'll hire a nurse, but, and they'll come and clean you up, if something happens, but I can watch, and if you're not doing well or you need somebody to talk to or you're hungry or, that kind of stuff. I can do that, even though, I know we're slowly or fairly quickly going towards one end. I still know that I can, I'm more than willing to do that. So in that way, when she passed, I had felt like, I had those moments, and I helped her out, and I did what was required. I didn't feel like my dad did, and I don't know if that eats at him or it bothers him. It would bother me if if somebody passed and I just shoved the responsibility onto someone else, my siblings or my children or whatever. I was like, I'm not dealing with that. I mean, when my parents get like I've done that for my dad. My dad's had multiple heart attacks. He had surgery one time, and there was a time where my grandmother, the one that passed that I took care of, was staying with him, and it was Mother's Day, and I subsequently lost my job because I had asked for Mother's Day off. I thought I got it off. The schedule came out. I didn't have it off, so I called in sick. They wanted me to get a doctor's note, so I was going to make something up and go from there. But what had happened was, in reality, I went to Mother's Day with my mother and her mother and my mother's boyfriend, who was a douche the entire time. And then my other grandmother was staying with my dad. So I told my mom, I said, well, I'm going to run over there. I had taken my truck. I said, I'm going to run over there, and I'm going to go see Yaya and say, Happy Mother's Day. I get there, and I knock on the door, and my grandmother was well into her 80s at this point. She's like 4 feet tall, and she wakes, and she opens the door, and she's white like a goddamn ghost, and she's like, oh, thank God you're here. I said, what? She said, there's something wrong with your father. He won't go to the doctor. He won't listen to me, and I don't know what to do. And like, she rarely was ever rattled in my entire life, but she was like rattled to the fucking bone. I said, okay, let me see what's going on. So I walked in the door, and I think I was fucking 19, 20 years old at this time. And here's this 80-year-old woman asking this 20-year-old to take care of the guy who's in the middle, he had quadruple bypass surgery at like 40 years old. He had 2 heart attacks after that. The fucking guy knew what was going on, but he refused to do what he was supposed to. So I sat down, and we had conversation, and I said, oh, how you doing, and then Dad comes in, and he's talking to me, and I'm like, so what the fuck's this I hear about there's something wrong with you? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you got her scared half to death, and she said that there's something wrong with you and you won't go to the doctor. He's like, I don't know. I ate this thing and I was pushing the more and blah, blah, blah. And he's describing like his jaw hurts and his back hurts and his shoulders hurt and his neck hurts and his arm hurts and all this. And basically, if you like looked up the precursors of a heart attack, that motherfucker had all of them. So I said to him, okay, everything you're saying is precursors of a heart attack or, symptoms of a heart attack. You are going to the fucking hospital. He's like, I'm not going to the fucking hospital. Fuck you. I'm like, yes, you are. If I have to fucking call the ambulance, you are going to the hospital. He said, well, give me an hour and let's see. So there's obviously something wrong with him. He's pale. He's got labored breathing. And I'm like, okay. So we sat and we talked I talked to my grandmother for a while, and, we're making conversation because she asked me how school was going. Same shit that everybody asks me now. This is fucking 9 years later. But anyway, so he looks at me, and I finally get up, and I said, okay, so what are we doing? He said, yeah, I think I need to go to the hospital. So I load his fat ass in his truck. I load my grandmother in the car. In the truck, she's 4 feet tall, and that fucking truck's like 8 foot in the air. So we got to try to, put her in there at damn near 90 years old. And I put her in there, and so we go to the hospital. Well, it turns out asshole had a heart attack. Oh, of course he did. So they admit him to the hospital, and they do a cath through his leg. I think they put 2 stents in, something like that. Well, in the meantime, I have to take care of now my 80-some-year-old grandmother, who I'm deathly afraid is going to wind up dead in the meantime. But Dad's like, here's my wallet, take the truck, blah, blah, blah. And the part of it that bothers me to this day, I had to wear his clothes because I had no clothes. I had come with no clothes. I had nothing. And I washed my clothes and wore them again. But in the meantime, I'm not running around naked. I needed new underwear. I needed all kinds of stuff. So I had a pair, luckily, I had some clothes left over from when I stayed there on a fairly regular basis. So I had underwear, but none of the shirts fit. I was a lot fatter than that. And so I'm sitting there and I'm digging, I'm wearing his shirt. And then I went outside, and he's like, well, he was working on this and this was happening. So I went outside and I was doing his work, and I had his wallet. I had his clothes on. I was driving his truck, and I'm like, if he dies and I have to just take over his life, and I'm taking care of my grandmother, and I'm taking care of his house. I'm putting in wood. I'm doing it. And I'm like, if he dies and I have to take over his life, this is going to be fucking terrible. Oh my God, please, for God's sakes, get better. And I wasn't concerned about him getting better because he's had a lot of bad shit happen to him, but he's come out of it pretty good. But it was just the weirdest sensation. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever had anything similar, but you know, they've had a heart attack, which is rather a serious event, and he's in the hospital after having major surgery, and I'm wearing his clothes and basically becoming him. Like I'm living his life. And it's like, oh my God, next they're going to call me from his job and make me go work there. And so I stopped. I took my grandmother back, and finally he got better. So then I had to stay there for like 3 weeks, and I subsequently lost my job because they're like, well, you know, and they dicked me around for a while. Well, we don't know what we're gonna do with you yet. And finally, I just quit, which is what I wanted to do anyway. But my mother wouldn't let me because you have to have a job. I don't have to have that fucking job. But you know, it's one of those things where I've had a lot of bad things happen to me. You know, I've had to take care of people, and I've stepped up, you know, and I don't know if that bothers my dad or not, but I don't really know what else to do in those moments. You know, somebody goes down, and, you know, I don't, you know, other people, I'm not, you know, my life is designed so if people need help, they can send up the bat signal and I'll show up. But if I were to become more busy and all that shit, that would all have to stop, because I can't do everything for everybody if I'm doing all the stuff I need to do on top of it. You know what I mean? If that makes sense to anybody, like I'm accomplishing all the things I need to accomplish, so I have no time to do anything else. And it's really a sad situation, but in that, like right now, I like to go see my cousin. I used to stay there for a month, but I have my girlfriend, I have the house, I have all this shit. I can't go down there. I can't spend as much time down there as I'd like. It's disappointing, but it's just how it goes. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. You know, they live a couple hours, you know, more than a couple hours away, and I need to be able to, you know, if I'm gonna drive that far, I need to stay for a while. Well, the place that I live in now ain't set up for that, so I don't know. It's just one of those deals where life comes at you fast, and the older you get, the faster it comes. I mean, it came at me fast from when I was young, but I don't know. That test score rattled the shit out of me. I either got to get my shit together, or I got to quit, or I don't really know. I feel like I should do more. Like I'm planning to do more, but I'm not being successful in what I need to do. That's the saddest part. Like I have no clue. I have no clue what I'm supposed to do. And that really makes me the saddest, because I like making the plan, but I just don't want to put the work in. I really don't. Like, I like to say, okay, I'm going to do this then, I'm going to do this then, I'm going to do this then, and then I'm going to be done. No, you're not, because you're not going to get good grades. You're going to have bad fucking GPA because you can't get decent grades. I don't know. It's just, you know, it's one of those things. I decided to do the MBA program and all that other stuff, and that's why the GPA is important, but I can't decide whether or not I want to do that, or if I don't know. This has been a hard week, you know. Holidays, fucking daylight for like 6 minutes all the week, you know. It's just, I don't know. I'm slogging through it, but I ain't very happy at the moment. And, you know, I used to be happy, I feel like, during the holidays. I don't know. People who know me better probably would say probably not, but I don't know. Anyway, so I went and did my second time I paused tonight. I'm probably going to get off this depressing ass subject, and I'm going to talk about something more interesting, hopefully. I bitched quite a bit about Mike McCarthy and how I wanted him fired, and they finally fired the fat asshole, which is good. However, they lost to the Cardinals, so now my level of giving a shit about the Packers has completely dissipated. Like, I don't care at all. You're 4-7-1, I think, right now. Fuck you. They might be 4-8-1. I don't even know. They might have been 4-7-1 when they lost. I don't know. I just know that it's just a bad fucking time to be a Packer fan. It's good because McCarthy's gone. However, now they're talking about Joe Philbin might actually be a fucking that guy is he's just a skinny, bigger nosed version of McCarthy. I mean, he just is terrible. He was with the Dolphins. He wasn't very good there either. So, I'm sorry, but You gotta do something else. And then Winston Moss came out with a tweet about how whoever that next head coach is needs to hold everybody accountable, basically 12 and above. And it's like he was talking basically about Rodgers, and then he got fired. It's like that same day. Which the funniest part about that is that he got fired because, the guy, what he said wasn't untrue, What he said was, I mean, he was an ex-football player. Winston Moss was a linebacker. Those guys are usually a little, intense. And so he said something like that. Shocking, not really. But the fact that he got fired is kind of funny. I'd like to see him hire a defensive guy. I'd like to see him hire a defensive guy with an offensive thing. And then I saw Brady Quinn on CBS Sports talking about how they should try to trade for Sean McVay. What a fucking... why are people so stupid? Granted, sports isn't, I don't know, it doesn't attract Rhodes Scholars, except like Myron Rolle, who couldn't play football because he was a Rhodes Scholar, supposedly, even though he was a fairly high recruit, and before he went to the Rhodes Scholar, he played pretty well. But they just didn't want anything to do with him. He's too smart. Okay, well, fine. So the dumb guys play football. Well, Brady Quinn is the, quintessential dumb guy. I mean, his arms, he was more concerned about his bicep size than he was about his ability to throw downfield, because they said that his biceps were too big and it was causing issues with his throwing motion. Whether that's true or not, if that's even moderately the case, and then you're doing commercials for like muscle stuff, I mean, you're a fucking imbecile. But anyway, so his grand plan is to trade Sean McVay to the Packers. Why? I mean, Goff is young, doesn't make a lot of money. They have Todd Gurley. Granted, their defense is going to get decimated next year, but they still have Aaron Donald. The Packers have nothing of the sort. I mean, they have Devontae Adams. Aaron Jones, they're finally giving him the ball, and people are like, oh, Aaron Jones, he's really good. I'm like, yeah, Aaron Jones has been good for 2 years. I've known that. If you're a Packer fan, you fucking know that. The only person who didn't know it was the guy who called fucking plays, because he's an asshole. I hate fucking McCarthy. I'm glad he's gone. But at this point, I don't care anymore because it's over. I mean, the season's over as far as I'm concerned. Like, they might squeak something out here. But, excuse me. It's not important anymore. It's a dumb, stupid, worthless thing. And we're not, we as fans aren't going to, see anything spectacular. They're not going to make a run and win the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen. They just don't have the horses for it. But I just think that, they went from a guy named Mike to a guy named Joe. Well, they're going to get a Mike and Joe offense because they need and the candidates I saw were a bunch of guys who were on McVay's tree, and everybody's like, oh, you got to hire this guy, got to hire that guy, John D. Filippo and fucking Zach Taylor and a bunch of dudes you've never fucking heard of in your entire life. And granted, good football coaches aren't good football coaches until they're given a chance, but let's get somebody who is a little more established. I mean, Eric Bieniemy was another. He's been offensive coordinator there for 5 minutes with Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't mean he's good at offense. It just means that he is Patrick Mahomes and he's under Andy Reid. I mean, Matt Nagy looks okay. Doug Peterson was a quarterback, so some of that makes sense, but. And I still think I have an Andy Reid with Rodgers, when he got fired, had they gotten rid of McCarthy and moved in, Andy Reid. He'd probably be dead now because he'd have had a heart attack from all the cheese curds he ate. But I honestly think that there's something to be said for the idea that people have, given them, they've put themselves in a bad situation, and the Packers are, as an organization, like a person, and they are like a person like that. I mean, they just put themselves in a bad situation with a bad coach and a quarterback who couldn't get along anymore. And now they can't get along, so that's the end. Well, okay, that's fine, but let's move on now. And let's not bring in Philbin or Mike Petnine. I mean, if a guy wants to keep Mike Petnine, fine, but he's not to be the head coach. Joe Philbin sure as fuck ain't going to be the head coach. Any idiot. I mean, and Mark Murphy, I don't know why he's CEO. I don't know why he's the chairman or whatever the fuck he is, basically the owner. He played football and he's 60 some years old. He's got mental problems, man. He sounds like he's taken too many hits to the head, which is entirely probable. He played safety back in the bad old days, you know. So if you ask me, I don't know. They just, you know, and then they're already coming out saying Rodgers, he's not going to have any say in the. What the fuck? Are you guys just trying to antagonize everybody? Because if you're in this state and you're a Packer fan, you like Rodgers, period. Or you hate Rodgers because you think he's from California and he's a dick. I know people who are like that. But if you are a Packer fan who likes Rodgers, you're going to like him. And if you're not, you're not. And that's the end of it. I think this whole alienating of certain people is just stupid. And it's just stupid in general. And the Packers, like I said, I really don't, like, I was wound up about this when McCarthy was still there, and I thought they still had a chance to do something. But now I don't see, I mean, they lost to the fucking Cardinals. The Cardinals are atrociously bad. So I'm done. I'm done. And I will say, as an aside, because I've talked about Adrian Peterson, I've been paying attention to the Redskins and the fact that Alex Smith had a compound fracture and then fucking Colt McCoy broke his leg and now they're down to Mark Sanchez. I mean, these are old-ass names. I mean, Alex Smith and Colt McCoy and Mark Sanchez. I mean, those are names from when I was a kid. Like, I was a young man. Like, they were in college ripping it up. And they're not that much older than me, but as far as, like, when their careers started and where they are and where I would be, you know, Smith is in the decline phase. Sanchez should be in the very end of his prime, but he never really had a prime. And McCoy's the same thing. And, you know, it's sad for McCoy because I've always liked Colt McCoy. He was a Texas quarterback. I like Texas. I watched Texas versus Oklahoma at the gym the other night when they were playing for the Big 12 championship, and I was interested in that game simply because that Kyler Murray dude is good. I don't think he's going to play football. He's not dumb. He's going to go play baseball. Anybody who thinks otherwise probably should get their brain evaluated, but it is what it is. I mean, maybe he'll play football because if he gets drafted first overall, I'm assuming the money's better. He's going to go wherever the money's better. But you can always play, you know, he could try both. It's been a long time. People were talking about that. I don't know. But I don't know. I feel bad for Alex Smith. I feel bad for Colt McCoy. I feel bad for Colin Kaepernick because people are, you know, neglecting the fact that he hasn't played football, I think, in like 3 years now. And granted, he might not be very good anymore because, you know, 3 years, they always say, like, game shape. Being in shape versus being in game shape is not the same thing. But he's had significant time to rest any injuries that he had because he was fairly injured. He had like 4 surgeries the year the last year he played in the league. And this guy's not bad. And the Redskins could use him. The Jaguars could use him. There's a couple of teams. I mean, you're starting Cody fucking Kessler. You're trying to tell me that Colin Kaepernick's worse than Cody Kessler just because Cody Kessler's been on a roster the last 3 years? I don't think so. Mark Sanchez was sitting on the fucking street. Now, granted, he played last year. Pretty sure he played last year, either for the Bears or the Cowboys. But he's not very good. He hasn't been good in years. I don't know. I think it's depressing that they won't sign him because they're, you know, he's just pariah. He's not. He's not even that smart. He's just some guy who, like Kyrie Irving, heard about a flat earth theory. And granted, now what Colin Kaepernick is protesting, supposedly, is more, you know, well thought out. Like, it's more relatable and a better thing to protest than what Kyrie Irving saying fuck Thanksgiving and we live on a flat planet and whatever. You know, violence in with our, you know, in certain communities in respect to how the cops treat people. That's something worth, you know, addressing. But if you've ever really listened to Colin Kaepernick speak, I think he kind of just like he might feel this way, but he's not the smartest guy. I mean, he did that thing with Castro, and there were a few other miscues that he's had. And while he's, to be, what he's doing is keeping light on an issue that maybe not a lot of people talk about enough. That's fine. But as a spokesperson, he's not the best simply because, like, he's famous, which is good because normally athletes and famous people stay away from controversial issues like this. But he's kind of stupid. Like, I've heard him speak quite a few times, and he's not eloquent. He's not always well thought out. There's a lot of times where he's just shooting from the hip, and he's not smart enough to be shooting from the hip. And that's not, that's not bad. I mean, there's some people who need to write their thoughts down, and if they do, they sound better, and it makes more sense. That's good and all. But I don't think even if he does that, he's all that bright. And he's a football player, so he's taking hits to the head, and, he's had, he's probably had some substances in his system that aren't good for his brain and stuff like that. So, I just necessarily think that he kind of found himself in this position. Like he truly felt he should do something, but what he did kind of fucked himself over, and not intentionally. Like, he never intended to get kicked out of the league. He can act like, oh, I'm, fight the power and, the fist in the air like those guys at the Olympics. But I highly doubt he wanted it to turn out this way. I mean, you couldn't tell me that in your mid to late 20s, I think he was 27 when this happened, because I think he's a year older than I am. I think he's 30 now. When you're 27 years old, that you would change the course of your life. Like, as a quarterback, now granted, the way he played quarterback from 27 to 35, he probably could have played. Granted, the last couple years, like from 33 to 35, he'd probably be a backup, but he could, he could help a team. There's no way you could say to me, okay, he decided to do this at 27 and, reject football. He didn't retire because of concussions like Chris Borland, or, he didn't retire. He's not retired. He worked out for the Seahawks. He's still interested in football. He's talked about it. I think this was something that kind of happened to him, and he's embraced it because he needs money and he can't turn away from this now, because it's his only avenue to any kind of financial success and security. So, and I'm not saying he's exploiting it. That's not what's happening here. What he's doing is he's just going along with what's happening now, because he has no choice. He can't go backwards. He can't, I mean, Eric Reed he hasn't gone backwards, but there's been significant talk about him, and there's no one really speaking to, like a grassroots movement of, hey, we got to hire Colin Kaepernick. I mean, there's no real talk. I don't hear anything. Like, you'd think Jalen Ramsey down with the Jaguars would, if he thought Colin Kaepernick could help that team, would have his mouth flapping. Now, maybe he learned his lesson about, bumping his gums. But I think that, there are guys on teams who are fairly, like, loud and mouthy, and they don't shut up. And you'd think that if their quarterback sucked, why doesn't Deshaun Jackson say, he didn't like Jameis Winston, and then they kept bringing in Fitzpatrick, and Jameis Winston come in, Fitzpatrick, and he had better chemistry with Fitzpatrick, but, at one point he could have said, let's bring in Kaepernick, man. He'll do good, whatever. I don't fucking know. There's receivers that could have said that, guys on the, like I said, the Redskins are a bad example because they don't have a receiver. Now, apparently Peterson's kind of been on that train a little bit, but he got himself in hot water again, saying he beat his kid. And, to be honest with you, I know this isn't a popular opinion, but a lot of my opinions aren't very popular because I kind of see it as live and let live. And should he beat his kid with a stick? No. Did he beat his kid with a stick? Yes. Have people been beating their kids with sticks before? Yes. Did those kids turn out to be psychopathic maniacs? No. Not all the time. Sometimes they do, but how much is that is corollary and how much is that is, a causation? I just think that, trying to tell a guy how to handle his business is bullshit. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but sometimes you got to do extreme things with extremely bad behavior. I mean, people aren't built to deal with behavior. So a lot of people will sit there and say, "Well, you can't do that." Okay, so I'm going to give you the same goddamn kid. These people, like, it's like the movies, the old movies in the 90s, when the prim and proper woman or person, would get this kid. And the kid would be a hellion, just tearing shit up and throwing stuff at the walls and making a goddamn mess. And that person is trying to reason with the child and trying to treat it like an adult and finally by 20 minutes of this, the person's like, "That's enough, god damn it, stop it, man," and just flipping out. And then the kid's just standing there like shell shocked because they never expected that to happen. That's what I'm saying. There are kids like that where you have to do that. They have to know you're serious. And I hitting them with a switch is probably as serious as you can make it. And it was an ex-girlfriend or an ex-wife who reported him to the state, or reported it. And we often know that in relationships that go back, there's a lot of hard feelings. And there is a saying, however sexist and disgusting it may be, that has borne true to me in my life. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. I mean, a woman you screw over will do whatever she can. I mean, you look at going with the Redskins still, Reuben Foster. Everybody's up in arms about this Reuben Foster thing because he's an idiot, okay? But he's an idiot for a different reason. Because this same woman who came out and accused him of domestic violence earlier in the year went on trial and had to recant her statement because she said she otherwise she'd be perjuring herself when she had her hand on the Bible and said she made it up to, I don't remember exactly what reason, but she made it up. That woman lacks credibility to me. And if that's the same woman, who looks bad in that situation? Her to a degree. He looks bad for a different reason entirely. Because if he did that, that's bad. I'm not saying it's good. But we know with her that she's lost credibility. So I'm like 50%, that it could be. I'm not even 50 because when it first happens, it's 50-50. It could happen. She's more at like 30, 35, 25% that it could be true right now because she's already proven to lie. And she wanted to mess up his life. I think she said that. I don't remember, but I know that she said that she made it up. And he looks like he has bad judgment because this woman lied about you. Put your career in jeopardy once, okay? And moreover, the San Francisco 49ers probably cut him because they're like, "Dude, we told you to leave her alone. She's bad for you. Not good. Don't do it. I don't care how good she is in bed or whatever it is. You have to stay away from people like that." If he put his hands on her, that's a bad decision. But if he didn't, but he still associates with this chick after not only did she accuse him once, but now this is the second time. And then, this wasn't in San Francisco. He took her on the road with him. What the fuck? I liked Reuben Foster as a football player in college. I wanted the Packers to draft him. He fell precipitously. Now we know why. Partial of the reason was because he fought with that guy at the combine, but still, there had to be, because that couldn't, one isolated incident isn't going to kill a guy's draft stock that plays like he does. And I don't really blame the Redskins for claiming him because you know what? He's going to be a damn good football player. And if he gets away from this crazy woman, even if he did do it, they obviously have some kind of fucked up relationship and should have nothing to do with each other. I mean, honest to God, they have a toxic, terrible relationship. They're not good for either one of each other. Because this seems to me, because if now granted he could have made her lie and intimidated her and all that other stuff, which is entirely possible. But then she perjured herself the second time when she went on and put her hand on the Bible and said, "I have to recant my story, blah, blah, blah." Then she perjured herself then, which, you can't really. I'm sorry I'm yawning so much. When I paused, it's fairly late, and I've been taking melatonin to help me sleep. says I had such a fucked up sleep schedule, and it helps, but I took it long enough ago that it's probably an hour ago now. It's been long enough that it's starting to kick in, and I was falling asleep in the car when I had to go run an errand and stuff like that. So I'm probably not going to be too much longer on here, but that's why I'm yawning so much, just in case y'all were wondering. Anyway, they have a bad, and he could have intimidated her. He could have put her through this. He could have made her, recant, and he could have intimidated her. I'm not saying that's not possible, but then she perjured herself. And usually, if a victim, in my understanding and limited experience with the situation, if they get that far where they're willing to call the cops and go all the way into a courtroom and show up at court, like Greg Hardy got convicted, but they couldn't sentence him because his accuser wouldn't show up. They just leave. And granted, now they say that he paid her off, which is entirely true, more than likely, because he made a shit ton of money. But for a victim of violence, domestic violence or an assault victim of any kind, to get on the stand and testify against their abuser, to get that far into the process, they gotta really want to fucking, they were going for the nads, and the fact that she could get on the stand and then tell them that she lied, I don't feel like she's being intimidated. I don't. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel that way. So to me, she seems like one of these people who he's in a relationship with, and they're just not a good mix. It's volatile, it's out of control, it's inappropriate, and they should just give it up. They should be apart. There should be like a restraining order for both of them. Like if you two come within 50 feet of each other, you're both going to jail for a month, that kind of deal. I mean, look at Michael Kendricks. He fucking admitted to, doing insider trading, and he's on a roster again. He's going to play this weekend. I just think, and the other thing is, why does the NFL, why can't we give a guy, now granted he got one shot, but really we already condemned him. And so that's why after the second shot with the same woman, it's not like I saw a video. Oh, Christ. That was the beginning of the baseball season. I think it was a Dodgers prospect or a prospect of some team. Beat the living shit out of his girlfriend in a hallway. Just like they're walking. It's like an office building kind of stairwell, with the shitty metal railings. Not shitty, but they aren't like, ornate or anything. They're just those tubes. And then there's the steps. And they're going down the steps and they come through like an exit door. And they come into the stairwell, and it's one of those, just concrete and metal bar stairwells, and the guy, they're talking or something, and then all of a sudden he just hauls off and fucking smacks her, and he tears her hair down the steps, and like that video, that guy obviously did this, okay? And I can guarantee you that left marks, that left discernible evidence. What I heard is that she had a scratch on her collarbone, and I think she said he slapped her with his open hand and something else, Now, I'm not saying that what happened was okay. I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things, if we're going to be up in arms about something or, we want to, cut out this guy's, throat and, take everything away from him. That prospect from the baseball team, like that went largely unreported or talked about. And I mean, there was video of him he threw her down the steps, picked her up from the bottom of the steps, threw her up against the wall, was berating her. I'm assuming there was no audio, there was just video, but I'm just assuming that that's what it was, and that wasn't really talked about. But these more minor incidents with Reuben Foster, and then Kareem Hunt. Okay, so then Kareem Hunt's videos come out, and granted, apparently the Cleveland police didn't do their job, which is disappointing, but do we know the whole story? Because he's not like, it's not like they show her, walking down the hallway and Kareem Hunt walks next to her and then just all that stuff happens. He comes from around a corner. And so something happened in the interlude before he comes around in that videotape in that other area where they were, and something happened to incite him. Now he very well could have been drunk. I'm assuming he was. He's been in other altercations before. So this guy obviously has a temper problem. I don't think it mattered if it was a woman, a man, a monkey, a donkey, a cat, a fucking plant. He was going to beat up whatever that was. And what he did was inappropriate. It wasn't okay. But I don't necessarily want to list him. He's got an anger issue. That's what I see. And I think, he needs to get that under control. I mean, Pac-Man Jones is still in the league, and he supposedly paralyzed the guy with bullets. Okay? A bouncer at a strip club, if I remember correctly. And he ran roughshod. He did all kinds of shit. And that was some serious stuff. And this guy, pushed over obviously, like if she wasn't drunk, she wouldn't have fallen over. Or no, he launched that dude into her. That's what happened. And then he kicked her. And, I mean, I've seen worse kicks. I mean, I'm not saying it's okay, but I've seen, like, I just, the reason I'm not, because I saw all the verbiage on TMZ before I watched the video, and then I watched the video, and if you read what they wrote and the words that they used to describe the video and all that stuff, you'd swear to God that woman was, selling fucking daisies, and this black running back from the NFL just came up and just started pummeling her and kicked her really hard and reared like a fucking kicker, reared that leg back almost to touch the back of his fucking head and came around and just kicked her right in the face and, grabbed her and threw her on the ground like he had really bad, and I didn't see any of that. I saw a drunken fuckfest, and these drunk assholes were arguing or fighting or whatever they were doing, and then there was contact of some incidental sorts. He's fucking with his own friends more than he fucked with her. Like, he's shoving everybody out of his way. I mean, he wants to get at her, and that does not, that's not appropriate either. But the point is, a lot of people do a lot of stupid shit. And he fought a different guy. He got in trouble this offseason. That's what he did. He drank too much and got in trouble. He was probably feeling himself because he wasn't drafted very highly. He wasn't regarded very highly coming out. And, now's his time to say, hey, man, And obviously he's going to be upset because he felt disrespected. He wasn't respected the way he should have been. And that's understandable to a degree, but the way that he's going about it isn't going to gain you any more respect. It just took your job away. And that's sad because, it's sad for him because he made a mistake. Now, granted, he made a couple of different mistakes. This mistake is the one that cost him his job. And, it seemed like, according to what I read, the police is investigating its investigation. The NFL and the Chiefs claim they were lied to. Whether any of that is true, I still think that, removing him from Madden and, I don't know. There were some other things that I read about that seem a little foolish to me. I mean, we're going way overboard with this. This isn't like Ray Rice knocking out his girlfriend / fiance. This isn't that guy I saw from the Chargers game who was choking that fan, that pregnant woman. I mean, this isn't the same thing. And it's not good. It's bad. He shouldn't have done it. But I think just the general overreaction we have to, men not controlling their tempers as much around women. I think this is some of the issue that you have when you get into this gender neutral stuff, because women still expect that they can push the limit to that point, and then men aren't allowed to, react in the way that we would towards other men or to other people in general that are challenging us. And especially when you're drunk. I mean, when you're drunk, I don't know personally. I just experience it with other people and through other lenses. But when people I know are drunk, they don't act like themselves. They have very bad judgment, all of those things. And that's what alcohol does, supposedly, scientifically. It impairs your judgment. It makes you less rational. Some people are a little different than others, but he's obviously what, most people term as an angry drunk. So he's drunk and he's angry. And so this woman comes in his room or whatever happened, and they have an incident. And then, she's spouting off at the mouth, and so is he. And then she's pushing it, and he's really drunk and obviously has anger issues. And so she keeps pushing it. Well, then he's, fuck you. And she's probably fuck you. And they're not helping, and then people are trying to de-escalate the situation. He wants to fight them too. I mean, it's not a good situation all the way around. And the reason I bring up the gender neutral thing is because if it were going to be gender neutral and we don't even see gender, so then that means that because now also in that puritanical world, you're not supposed to fight anybody and you're supposed to love everybody and all that other shit. But okay, let's say we can only handle one thing at a time. So we handle the gender neutrality, and being a woman doesn't matter. Being a man doesn't matter. It just matters that you're a person. Okay. So I accept that. Now, if I get pissed off at what would have in olden days been termed as a woman or a female person, even though I am what would have been a man or a male person, I can enact whatever feeling I'm feeling on them. They're physically challenging me, so I'm going to meet that challenge the way I would in the old days with another male person, instead of treating them as, well, women are weaker and women physically weaker, and they're at a disadvantage because men are stronger and quicker and better at fighting oftentimes, and bigger, just mass size wise. But if we're gender neutral and we don't see that, we should be able to just handle it any way we want, right? Because it's not like, had you seen a man acting the same way towards Kareem Hunt, obviously she was pretty drunk, and her mouth obviously was going back and forth jawing with him, and he reacted in a very bad way towards a woman. Now, if he reacted that way towards a man, it would have been a bad look, but it would have been, well, he should have controlled himself a little bit better. I mean, it's not like he killed her. He didn't, this isn't Aaron Hernandez. This isn't Lawrence Phillips. This isn't, any number of people who have Ray Caruth, taking a hit out on his girlfriend. This isn't the same thing. This is a guy in the moment, taking it a little too far, only a little too far. He should have not shoved. Because I don't see where he shoved her. I saw him shove a friend of his into her, or a guy into her, and then she hit her head, and then he kicked her, but he didn't kick her that hard. I mean, he's a running back. His legs are fairly powerful. If he really wanted to kick her, he'd have reared back like a fucking horse and kicked her, and she would, she'd have been laying on the floor asleep. But she wasn't, and so he was just like, fuck you, that kind of kick. And granted, all of it's bad. It shouldn't have happened. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to have the conversation where I better understand, what's the new rule then, because it doesn't matter what she does. It only matters what I do. That is the rules that we grew up under, and when I was a kid. And it doesn't matter what the woman does, you can't react. It doesn't matter what the woman does, you can't react. It doesn't matter what the woman does, because you're the one that's going to wind up in jail. And she's going to be the one crying and say, oh, please don't take him to jail, I'm sorry, man. And I'm not saying you do it all the time, but if it ever happens, that is going to be the natural outcome, because you're a man, she's a woman. Arguably, you have an advantage over her, so you're going to be the one who's in trouble. In this situation, that Kareem Hunt dude did more damage to that blonde girl that was trying to get him between them than he did to that other woman. I mean, I don't know. I watched the video a couple of times, and it's bad. He shouldn't have done it, but the way people talked about it, the words they chose to write about it, and they, the terms that they used to describe this situation was just, it was hyperbolic and it blew it out of proportion for me because I had these huge expectations, and then I watched the video and I'm like, that's not what was described to me. That wasn't what I built. That wasn't the model that was in my head. And so I've lessened its importance to a degree, and maybe that's not fair to the victim because that seems like what the cops did and all that other stuff. But to me, it's what happens because, under promise, over deliver. Well, they over promised and under delivered because that video is like, a bunch of drunk people in a hotel hallway. I don't know. I don't really remember how I got on this topic, but I'm going to stop talking about it. So, I'm fading fast, if you can't tell. So I'm gonna cover one more sports topic, and then I missed my viewable entertainment of the week last week, and I just finished a whole 3 seasons of a certain show, and I'll talk about that one after I talk about Markelle Fultz. Here's another guy who there seemingly is something wrong with him. He apparently has thoracic outlet syndrome, which if you don't know what that is, I'm gonna try to give you the real brief definition of it. It's basically what they do is they take a rib out because there's a rib that's pushing down on a vein or a nerve, and it goes to your shoulder, and that's usually, now apparently they can do with physical therapy, which is usually, with anything, before surgery they try physical therapy. If that doesn't work, they take the rib out. That's what they'll do, is take the rib out. That's what they usually, that's common procedure as far as I know. But if you watch that guy, he's obviously got something wrong. The way he's handling things, it might be as simple as just, not wanting to be in Philadelphia anymore, which is entirely possible because, Philly had all those picks and everybody's talking about how great they, they fucked the system and they maybe got 2 guys out of like half a dozen. That's not great. They got, they picked Jahlil Okafor. They picked Markelle Fultz. They got Embiid. That took a while. Simmons, he's good. If he ever develops a fucking shot, he'll be killer, but that ain't here yet. They got Covington and Dario Saric and a couple other guys that netted them, Jimmy Butler. Which, thank God that ended because I was so sick of that story. But I just think that Markelle Fultz is he's seemingly a guy who has made a lot of mistakes. He's had a lot of problems. And he just, people were saying he had the yips for basketball, which is entirely true. But the guy, I don't know what he needs, but I really hope he finds it because I liked him, even though they lost a bunch in college. But I liked him as a player. I thought he was going to be a good prospect. And I don't like Lonzo Ball, so I liked him better. And I'm very interested to see if he ever comes back. And it said, now that I don't know if there's a difference between thoracic outlet syndrome and thoracic outlet syndrome and neurogenic thoracic outlet syndrome, which makes me think it's in his head. So now he's dreamt up ailment, If he's that far gone, I'm really sad for him because I think he's like 20. That's it. Or 21. The dude's career's ostensibly over. I don't know. It makes me feel bad because it makes me think kind of like Jay Williams, who's on ESPN now, who I loved at Duke, was a great basketball player. Oh my God, was that guy good. And then he had that motorcycle accident and it fucked with his femoral artery or one of the arteries in his leg, and he couldn't do it anymore because his leg wouldn't fire. He couldn't do the things he needed to do. I was disappointed he never came back. I really liked him. He was a good little player. And it's one of those things I think about where you think about what could have happened if these guys had done. And granted, that's such a hackneyed thing to say, but I just think about guys like Jay Williams and, I don't know. That's the one I think about a lot because I really I don't really like Duke, but I like Jay Williams. And, there's guys that Lenny Cook dude who was, rated above LeBron at one time when they were both in high school, and then he just got fat and out of shape and doing his own thing, and, he kind of, and then I watched that Bobby Knight documentary with all the basketball players that he had that, were there, and then they disappeared, and then they weren't ever as recognized as they should have been. Excuse me. But the thing being is that I just, I think about, Len Bias, who died from cocaine, and, I think Reggie Lewis died too from some other kind of heart ailment. But there's just those guys that kind of stuff happens, and it makes me think, hey man, what would have happened if X guy would have done what was expected, Marcus Dupree. These are all names that if you don't know them, you should look them up. Most of them have movies on them and 30 for 30s and stuff like that. And you just think about, if all that talent was realized, what would the sports landscape be like instead? If they all had been Barry Sanders, if they all had been Willie Mays, if they had all been the guys that we were like, this is the next do, and if they had turned out to be that dude, if everybody reached met their potential. And granted, it's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you saying this? But it's just interesting to me to think, because there were some guys that I really liked that didn't do anything, and they flamed out. I'm like, that sucks. That guy's good. I know he's good. But the human element is always the problem in those situations. And then that's where I think Fultz has his most issue, is the human element. Because it's in his head now, and only he can fix it. I don't know if Jimmy Butler's going to help that situation or not. He's not with the team. Fultz is now, because he's got this injury and all this other stuff. And it may well be that his career is over. And if that's the case, I feel bad for him. I really do, because I couldn't think of myself being done. Yeah, because I couldn't be an athlete. I just couldn't do it. The athletics that I would have excelled in aren't built for long-term success as far as being a person, and I want to live as long as possible in the best state as possible. And then the sports that promote that, I'm not interested in nor good at. Nor as good as I would have to be to have any kind of career at it, And so I was done before I started, and I still have to make my peace with that. I'm getting to be 30, and I always think of sports has been such a big part of my life, and I'm seeing 30 as a big number, and it's like, fuck, that's when everybody's old. Well, you're not old at 30. You're old at like 60. That's another that's another half of your life. You're only halfway, and it makes me nervous, because I just think about that. And so I've kind of, to be honest, I haven't watched sports. I've distanced myself. I still listen, but I listen to the old guys that I listened to before. I don't find new voices. I don't find new opinions. I pretty much stick with the horses that I know, because those horses are 20 years older than me. So I can feel good about myself, because it's like, well, at least he's older than me, Once they're dead, it makes me think about my parents and stuff, because their parents are all dying, and then they're the old guard. There might be a couple people who are 10 years older than them, or 15 years older than them, and then when those guys are gone, then it's only the 10-year-old. Well, then the 5-year. Okay, now it's just us, and it's like, fuck, if you live that long. I just think about that a lot, and I think about that too much, probably. But I'm really fading fast, and I've taken 3 swipes at trying to finish this. So I'm going to finish with my viewable entertainment of the week. This is another Showtime show. It's Billions with Paul Giamatti, Damian Lewis. I don't know what the woman's name is, but she was Tara on Sons of Anarchy. There's Malian Ackerman. I don't know how to say her first name, but she was the blonde girl in that movie with Ben Stiller, where he gets married and then he meets Michelle Monaghan and he falls in love with her, but he's married to this blonde woman and she's an idiot and terrible, and they're not a good combo. And she was also in Watchmen. She was the woman superhero, not the old. Her mother was the one who had sex with Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character, and that was her dad. And then she was the younger version of that. Who else is in the show? There's a lot of people. I mean, it's just like in the 3rd season, there becomes this Russian character, and the Russian character is played by John Malkovich, who I love in anything that he does. There's also, it's just, I'm trying to think, because I was talking to my mom about this. There's a lot of like character actor guys that I know their name or their faces and their voices, but I don't know their names. And the guy that is Damian Lewis's character who plays Bobby Axelrod. Bobby Axelrod's like right hand man, Wags. He was in Breaking Bad, and he was the weird chemist guy that Walter White tried to teach how to do that, and then I think he was killed in that show. And I don't want to say by who, because if you haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin it for you. But he's that guy. I'm trying to think other people that would be in the show that would be of interest to people. I don't know. There's a lot of people in that show. I mean, it's just really well cast. It's about, Attorney General in the Southern District of New York, who's played by Paul Giamatti, chasing after Damian Lewis's character, who's a hedge fund guy for Axe Capital, and he kind of does some crooked shit. And it's a really good show. I mean, I identify with both characters, and it's very chess-like. Oh, I guess Paul Giamatti's dad is played by the guy who was Dale in Walking Dead, the old guy who died. I guess if you haven't seen Walking Dead at that point, but you know what, too bad. I'm trying to think. There's the guy who comes on later when when Paul Giamatti's character is making a certain political move. His name's Blackjack Foley, and he's in like a lot of movies from when I was a kid. I don't know his name. I could probably describe some movies or some shows that you'd know him from. Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, just, the show is really interesting. It's very well written. It's by Andrew Sorkin, one of the guys, and I'm assuming that's Aaron Sorkin's brother. I don't know how many Sorkins there would be, especially in like Hollywood. Anybody with the same last name is usually related. And, sports tie-in, Paul Giamatti's dad used to be the commissioner of MLB, the baseball. But it's a really good show, well written, very strategic, calculated, all kinds of stuff. It's like watching people playing chess, except it's in real life, and with this happening and that happening, and there's a lot of fallout, and it's strange in certain spots, and it's just a really good show. I don't want to say too much, and I think my new thing I'm going to do with viewable entertainment is I'm going to give it 2 months, and then I'm going to talk about the show. And if you haven't seen it in those 2 months, then you missed out, and you're going to get a bunch of spoilers. And I'm going to say spoilers, and then I'm going to wait like 30, I'm going to wait a few minutes or a few seconds, and then I'm going to start talking. So you have a chance to turn your goddamn phone off or whatever you're listening to me on. But, yeah, that's my suggestion for this week. Go watch The Billions Show. It's on Showtime. You can probably find it online somewhere. I don't know. If you're overseas, I don't know how to help you. I'm not very well versed in that. But anyway, it's late. I need to probably go to bed. So I think that's it for me for today. This is a very truncated, quick episode. And I should have recorded this earlier, but it should still come out this week. Hopefully I'll have a description. I'll still try to put up the description for episode 9. I didn't do my job. I've been falling down on the job. Too much going on around the house, and trying to sit down and actually do this when I have projects due and projects in the house and all kinds of fucking shit to do. And that's not really an excuse, but it's what's going on. So I'd rather you be informed rather than not. But you can look at my Twitter if you'd like to get a hold of me on Twitter. I check Twitter. I just don't always put anything out there. Instagram, same thing. I'm on there. I just don't put a lot out because I'm not the most social guy. This is kind of like me socializing with myself. So, Facebook, you can find me on there. Send me emails. SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes. I don't know how to do Google Play. Sorry, Android people. You can find me on SoundCloud though. I know that goes on Android. YouTube does too. And these are shorter episodes. If you didn't like the longer ones, And maybe I'm going to probably tape my episode for next week tomorrow, or not tomorrow. I don't really know when I'm going to do it. I should do it now, but I can't hardly keep my eyes open at this point. So I probably won't do it probably till next week. And my sound guy is going to be like, hey, man, where's your podcast? And I'll be like, oh, that's right. I'm supposed to do a podcast. But like I said, reach out to me if you'd like to speak to me. Any number of ways. I will definitely try to get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, I think that's it for episode 10. And I will see you all again next time.